just let me finish this email real quick. All right, I'll throw my costume on and we're good.
What?
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it.
I'm so excited for the Teen Wolf and
Same
Lost
here.
Boys. It's gonna be great, man.
What's up, guys? Oh, Fred. I got this crazy dream I gotta tell you about later. I'll find you after the show. I'm really looking forward to that #1 Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh my God.
That's gonna be
It's
great.
insane.
There's so many good things in here.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horror-thon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to our live closing show for the VHS Horror Auction that's going to get started in just a little bit. I'm Mike Provenzale, and this is Jay, the expert at large in our VHS department, the head of our department. Jay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, you
Spooky
excited?
Season's here.
Spooky season is here, indeed. No costume,
No
though,
costume.
I see.
Yeah.
Me, what could be more terrifying than a shark?
I
Of
thought you had
course.
too much costume, so I think it balances it all.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little over costumed, but I tend to go a little overboard sometimes. So thank you for joining us, everyone. The auction is going to start closing lot by lot in about 10 minutes. And while that's happening, we're going to talk about what makes some of these valuable, what's interesting, news and notes, maybe talk about the movies a little bit.
Love talking movies.
Jay, you a big horror fan?
Love horror movies.
Yeah, my wife is a huge horror fan as well, so I've seen many of these through my fingers, a lot of them. But very excited. This is your second auction.
Second auction, yeah. We had one in June that went very well, and so we wanted to do a horror-themed one for the holiday.
Yeah, I love the theme auction and putting it all together. Great timing. We got Monday, Halloween. Probably not many people working too hard today. I mean, here at Heritage, everyone definitely is.
Yeah, definitely. There's nobody dressed up besides you.
Right, just me.
Nobody enjoying the holiday but you.
There isn't an evil carnival going on in the e-commerce department or anything like that. But as far as the auction, what items are you most excited about?
Oh man, that 1979 Beta Halloween, that has been one of my most sought out items since I started collecting tapes, and just to see one come in was such a treat.
Yeah, and that'll be coming up at the beginning, towards the front of the auction, I believe.
Yeah.
A lot of great Halloween and horror classics. I saw that you also have some Ghostbusters as well, which definitely fits the theme. More of a comedy, but definitely Halloween related.
It's good all year round, but it's especially good during.
Yeah, Little Monsters. So for the younger horror fans,
Yeah.
there's some good options in there as well. So why don't you just give a little rundown of what makes a VHS tape valuable?
Boy, I get asked this all the time now. There's a lot of open box collectors have been around since VHS, has started in the late 70s to early 80s, and it continued on with a very passionate fan base of horror fans. And so, those guys have carried the hobby for the longest time. And then within the last few years, we've seen people, I think, as an offshoot of sealed video games and that kind of thing, jumping into sealed VHS tapes. And A lot of people have been nostalgic. I was one of them.
Sure.
I remember my trips to the video store as a kid with a few dollars in my pocket, trying to figure out what I was going to spend my money to rent that night. And so it was one of those things where I just thought, like, I'm not really watching VHS tapes anymore. Most of the stuff's available in super high def now, and so it was just something nice for me to have that tangible piece of history from when I would go to the video store. And so I wanted to find the nicest copy possible since I wasn't going to be watching it. Sealed copies were the way to go. And because of that, I just started buying tapes, and it just kind of went from there. And it seems like other people maybe had the same thoughts and started jumping into it. And here we are now with our second auction. So
Yeah,
as far as value goes, people are looking for the nicest copy, just like anything that's graded, like comic books or sports cards. They want to have the nicest sealed copy of a title that came out, usually the first release. And anything that came out between like the late 70s to the mid 80s is really hard to find just based off of the quantities that were made. So those are like the really key titles.
So you're going to have to use all of your acting skills to pretend that I'm not an expert in this field, if you can.
Sure.
So if I'm at, an estate sale and they have VHS tapes, how can looking at it, can you tell that it's the first release?
That's sort of a difficult thing, but I think that the easiest thing to look for is a year on it. A lot of times they'll be in the fine print on the tape somewhere, usually on the back bottom. That'll have the year of the release of the movie, and then there'll be a year that the videotape was produced. And if it's between those years of 1977 and 1986, depending on when the film came out, it's usually a sought after copy. So those especially are the ones that people are looking for.
And what would you say are the holy grails of VHS collecting?
Boy, the big ones are we see a copy of Star Wars this past weekend sell for over $100,000.
Big news.
82 big box first retail release of Star Wars. Those are always big because there's so many Star Wars fans out there, and
Sure.
It's a title that people recognize. But it's the bigger titles. It's the ones that people love. Halloween that we have in this auction, that 1981 and the 1979 beta copy. Those are important tapes. Those are early tapes of movies that tended to be really popular. And it goes all the way up to, we had Back to the Future sell for a lot of money in the first auction, and people love Back to the Future. And so Goonies is another one. Those movies that everybody sort of gravitates towards and loves. If you can find releases that are close to that movie release year, chances are you might have a first release. And again, a lot more detail comes into it based off of the seal and the watermarks and the placement of the watermarks. But ultimately that's your first step, is finding one of those tapes that's close to the release year of the movie.
And we'll definitely get into some of those details as the lots come up. We got a few more minutes until the auction closing begins. It seems like a lot of the movies that are most popular and most valuable are the ones that started off big franchises. Yeah. And you've certainly got that in the horror genre. Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street,
Texas
Chainsaw, absolutely.
Yeah.
Alien, I saw you have a nice copy of Alien coming up here right at the top, almost.
Super rare copy. That's an early magnetic video copy that was released in the UK. Magnetic Video was one of the very first companies out there that was producing VHS and beta tapes, and so finding anything magnetic, video sealed is just it's a big deal. And then if it's one of the bigger titles, then it's huge.
So speaking of Halloween, who are these monsters who were buying VHS tapes and not opening them back in the day?
See, this is why it's so rare to find these tapes now, is because at that point in time, the tapes were so expensive for people to buy. Just finding, they were making limited copies because there were very few people out there that could afford a VCR in the late 70s. It's the heavy top loaders. There weren't a lot of people who were spending that kind of money. And so if you're buying one of those tapes, chances are you're opening it and you're watching it. Or if you were a rental store and you're buying one of those tapes, you were opening it and renting it to people. So finding them is just exceedingly difficult for those really early days of VHS and beta. Like it's nearly impossible.
And so it's just a situation where people forget about it, or maybe a store that went out of business.
Exactly, yeah. Or, store stock is one of those things. You do see it where people at estate sales are finding, some pretty ridiculous titles that have just sat in a drawer somewhere for, years and years and years.
So how long have you been collecting VHS?
I mean, I've had tapes. I had started collecting tapes as a kid in the 80s, and most of them were previewed at that point, and I had a pretty massive collection because I was a film nut. So, I by the time DVD started coming out, I had hundreds of tapes that I had purchased from stores or asked for holidays or whatever, and so as DVD was coming out, I would replace those and give them to relatives. And so I kept a very small amount of tapes that didn't go when I started collecting DVDs. And then I kind of got the bug again, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and just started buying them again. And it was just as this sort of novelty to put on my shelf to look at this tape that reminded me of when I was a kid.
You have an amazing display set up in the gallery. We posted a film of it on our social media. You should take a look. It speaks to that nostalgia for
really
sure. Seeing all those titles and, similar to the movie poster department that we have here, seeing the covers, all that. You just don't see that anymore when it's all digital. And
Exactly. Yeah, they ended up, Photoshop took over at a certain point, and those covers were far less cool looking, even on the later VHS titles. A lot of them were just sort of cut and pasted heads on a
right,
case,
just
case
featuring
rather than
the
art.
actors
Exactly.
even, and less the movie. But
Yeah.
those horror titles, and a lot of them that you have here in the auction, have some great covers.
And that's one of the best parts of the 80s, is those covers are just so iconic. Like, anybody that went to a video store in the 80s can just you can see those covers on the wall. Like, you remember those moments, and to be able to hold that tangible piece of history in your hand again, it's just it's kind of powerful.
Definitely. And that's kind of, I work in the sports department. It's the same with trading cards. It's the same with video games. Yeah, they're graded, but looking back on it and the memories that it brings, and with a movie, it's bringing the first time you saw it, if you were out on a date, if you watched it with your family, especially holiday movies, even the Halloween movies. I'm sure I'll be watching something with the kids tonight. But yeah, it's a great genre. Very happy to have it at Heritage. That first auction went smashingly well.
Yeah, it did really well.
So excited to see what happens today. And here we go. We're getting started. The first lot. What can you tell us about it here?
555. So this is a sort of a cult favorite.
I'm not familiar with it. I'll
gory,
say that.
Very gory. One of those movies that you'd definitely be watching for your fingers. This was a 2016 release of it. So it was a later one, more of a novelty release than anything else, which you see some companies doing now. And the cover says it all. It's just it's gory.
Yeah, pretty graphic cover for something that was going to be displayed publicly. Have you seen this movie?
I haven't seen this one.
This
is one of the very few that I have not seen.
All right. Thank you for your honesty. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. Those of you watching the auction enjoying Robo Sadler's voice as we move through. Some bids coming in. Nice action on this one so far. Had you ever seen one of these sealed
I haven't
before?
seen this one sealed before.
Oh, and there we go. All right. Alien, one everybody is familiar with, kicking off a huge franchise that's still going, question mark.
Still kinda going.
Could throw out another one. I guess you did have Prometheus,
We
and
did,
which is the spin-off. But this one more of the thriller variety.
Yeah, this one is sort of it's got sort of a gothic horror feel to it, I'd say.
For sure.
And that H.R. Giger artwork and the alien, it's much more of a suspense movie than the second one, which was just all out action.
Yes, and excellent action right now on this one. Speaking of the 4600, what makes this copy unique here?
It's a rare first release for Magnetic Video for the UK. They're so hard, the Magnetic especially. That's a company that's so hard to find because they stopped production of tapes in the early 80s. So they were a very, very small window of time to find actual Magnetic copies.
So Magnetic was kind of the pioneer in the industry, but didn't last long.
Yeah, they didn't last long. A lot of these companies were acquired by bigger companies eventually, and they switched names and that kind of thing. But this is a big one.
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street here. Everyone very familiar with this franchise. 12,000 right now, and that's a terrifying cover that I remember very well from my youth.
Yeah.
The first time I watched this movie, I think I was 10, and the babysitter let us watch it.
Yeah.
And brilliant idea for the movie that when you go to sleep, that's where the horror happens, because of course after you watch the movie, then you're eventually going to have to go to sleep. I did not sleep much that first night, and I don't believe that babysitter returned. And how does this one rate to you as far as the date?
So this one, the first one is ended. This is the second 1987 copy, and any Nightmare on Elm Street pre-1990 is just exceedingly difficult to find. They're really hard to find, and it's a classic. And I think that's why I think so many people either opened it or just wanted copies, and they're just difficult to get your hands on because a lot of people don't want to let them go.
The irony there that the most popular ones, of course, are going to be the hardest ones to find sealed.
Exactly.
For those of us that are outside of this industry, it's just amazing to think that there are so many that are still sealed out there. I've been looking for them every time I go to a video store or anything. You've got me
You can find them
keeping
still.
an eye out.
You know, people are going out to yard sales and Goodwills and Salvation Armies and secondhand stores and that kind of thing, and they're still finding some pretty amazing tapes.
Yeah, so another nice copy of Nightmare on Elm Street. This is part 2 here. I prefer the one cover there, but they're giving Freddy his due finally. He became such a big star after the first one. You got to put his disfigured, burned face on there.
Where he was just a force of pop culture. He was in the zeitgeist at that point.
Oh, absolutely.
He was everywhere. He had his own 800, 900 number, and he had his own TV show, Freddy's Nightmares. And
did you ever call that 900 number?
I never called them. My parents would have killed me if I called it 900.
Fair enough.
Number.
Fair enough. Yeah, great franchise. I love the Dream Warriors edition.
Is probably my favorite outside of the first.
That's the first one that I saw in the theater.
Yes.
When I was finally old enough to see it. But a lot of nice action on this one. 6,500 right now.
This is an early full box media release, first issue of Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Wow. All right, April Fool's Day. I'm not familiar with this one. Fill me in.
This is a cover that I can vividly remember from when I was a kid in the video store.
I remember it at Blockbuster for sure, but never saw it. It's definitely leaves a lasting impact.
It does. It's one of those ones that stuck with me over the years and scared me as a kid when I'd go in there.
Good action on this one. We're at 750 right now. So is this one of these cult classics? That's the other aspect, is the cult classics can be valuable as well.
Yeah, exactly. And again, cult classics, the quantities produced are probably a little bit smaller than some of those big major releases, and so you see less of it. It's all about supply and demand, and there's so little supply of some of these titles that it's impossible to find them. And if you do find them, you gotta pay a little bit to take them home.
So do you find that most people that are consigning, do they have a large collection, or these are one-offs? I happened to find this when I was going through the house.
Really, I've talked to guys who have found first release Raiders of the Lost Ark at a yard sale and paid $1 for it, and then I have other guys who have had massive collections of VHS that are still sealed and just put them aside. Former video store owners that brought tapes home and just put them aside thinking they were going to watch them at some point, and they just sat there for 30 years in a box, and so we've been able to find some really cool stuff from just everybody. It's
right.
Everybody's finding things.
Yeah, and of course, if you have any sealed VHS and you'd like to get them appraised, we do free appraisals. Or if you think you've found something that could be valuable, Jay, give out your contact info.
Yeah, you can reach me at jayc@ha.com, so jc@ha.com. Happy to take a look. Pictures are always welcome. Lists are always welcome. We can go through and let you know if you have something that might be valuable.
And have you done any consignment trips yet? Have you been out to someone's house?
I have, yeah. The video store owner that I had talked to, he had put these tapes aside. His wife gave him a hard time for having them all those years. She had since passed away about 5 years ago, and he realized that people were starting to look for these tapes. They saw some articles in their local paper and reached out, and they had some pretty amazing things. They had an early Goonies tape that we sold in the first auction for $50,000.
Huge number.
I think 12 tapes. They sold maybe about $90,000 worth of stuff, and this guy thought it was just stuff that he would probably have to throw away. So you can find them.
That's the fun part about the collectibles industry is you always run into people like that their partner or their spouse or their mom or their family members been busting their chops about holding on to something, and then now it's finally gotten over the hump where it's valuable. I can definitely see VHS tapes being in that group.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that people just overlook for years. It's not like other collectibles where people have thought, I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to wait for it to grow in value. It's just they chances are most people either threw them away once DVD came out, or they threw them in a box somewhere. And if they're lucky enough to have the right titles, there could be a lot of money sitting there.
Yeah, and so up till now, it's kind of been the Wild West out there. You had to figure it out on your own. In sports, we've had price guides and sites devoted to it and price research. But so is the industry for VHS kind of coming around and becoming a little more where everyone can jump in?
There's still a bit of a learning curve, almost like video games, because I look at some of those and I don't understand what came first and what makes something rare. but the knowledge is starting to spread around the hobby. So there's a lot more things coming out. There's more people that are talking about tapes. There's more articles being written about tapes, and it seems like there's just a lot more interest. So there's the people that do have that knowledge are starting to come out, and it's fun for them to be able to educate people on what's rare and how things worked back then.
How about shows? Are there VHS shows yet?
I wish it would make things a lot easier to be able to go poke around at a show. It's one of those things right now where you're hoping to go to. I went to a local video game convention and I found a sealed 1978 copy of Spielberg's Duel on Laserdisc, and
Wow.
so I picked it up. It's sort of on the fringe of a lot of those sort of pop culture conventions and things like that. Or you got to find a guy at a flea market that's got a big table of them. But there's no dedicated shows. I'll amend. There are like some swap meets. You see VHS swap meets. I know in Dallas they have one.
Mm-hmm.
There's those are small dedicated groups of people to get together. But for the most part, there isn't like a big sealed, convention anywhere. So
Do you think it's building towards that?
I hope so. It's
VHS Con or something like that.
It's fun, so I would love to see it. But even just to see it mixed in a lot of those open tapes, there's a lot of really great stuff that you can still find that's open and in nice shape. So I think complete in box is probably the next big thing that's going to happen once sealed really goes.
I remember last year at the National Sports Collectors Convention, I saw one sealed VHS tape that was
Really?
at someone's table. And then this year in August at the show, there was a couple people who had tables of them.
Yeah, and it's one of those things you see at like secondhand stores a lot. Like people would always sort of value Star Wars tapes. So you would see like somebody that had an overpriced Star Wars trilogy or an early 1984 Star Wars slipcase just sitting on a shelf somewhere, with a price tag of like $100, which was completely unreasonable back in the day. But as things come around, we see more and more that there's people that are would kill for those prices. So
Definitely. So let's see where we're at right now. Lot 19.
Shopping mall.
Shopping Mall. I have not seen this one. Fill me in.
This is a great one. So this is
Now, is this a great one or enjoyable because it's campy?
Campy 80s horror
Okay,
classic.
okay.
Killer robots used as security guards in a mall. And of course they go haywire and there's people that are stuck in that mall and have to fend for themselves against the robots.
Okay, so recommend it.
Recommend it.
Okay.
Very fun horror title.
We've got a lot of great Stephen King titles in the auction.
yeah.
Christine, this is an excellent one. Great cover too as
John
well.
Carpenter, Stephen King, two horror masters together. You can't beat that, and it's a great. I don't know if anybody's. There's not many fans of the new Halloween movie, but it definitely has Christine vibes to it.
Have you seen the new Halloween movie?
The new Halloween. I've seen the new Halloween movie,
And
it's got Christine vibes to it.
Okay.
But it's good. It was a fun movie, but I can understand why a lot of people didn't gravitate towards it.
Okay, and it's the last one. I'm assuming.
Last one of that trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, they never stay dead. So
Right.
Okay.
All right, Chud. This one I am familiar with. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Yeah.
I remember this one from my youth. This was a definite sleepover favorite.
Yes. Early Daniel Stern.
But I will say, watching it back then, I cannot believe we've come to a point where this is valuable. It's something where I get it. It definitely made an imprint on me. I remember that movie, Chud 2, seen that as well. It's so interesting how these things come full circle, and then there's people like us who loved it as a kid and are willing to pay serious money for a piece of that nostalgia. Let's talk about the grading just a little bit. So, which services are out there?
So there's a few grading companies that are doing VHS right now. The first one out of the gate was IGS, and then it was followed by VHS DNA, and then VGA, who had been doing video games and action figures for 20 years now.
Right.
And so those are the three majors. There's a couple more that are on the horizon. I know CGC was looking for a VHS person not too long ago, and there's another company called Rewind that's coming up. So there's no shortage of places that are looking to get into it.
And for the layman, when they're grading, what are they looking at?
They're looking at the box and they're looking at the seal. Those are primarily, and there's sort of sub grades to each of those. The corners, if the corner is dented, if the seal has a hole in it somewhere. So these are all things that get taken into consideration before awarding it some sort of final grade.
So if somebody's out there and they find a VHS and the seal, it has a hole, you said it could still be graded. Obviously, it's just going to get a lower grade.
Yeah, it'll have a lower grade, but they're again, some of these tapes are just so rare. It's like find another one.
Right.
If there is a hole in if it's a copy of something from 1981, chances are there probably aren't too many of them. They're still kicking around out there with any seal on them, let alone, one with a small hole in it.
So you can take what you get.
Exactly.
All right, Dead Alive. What do you think about this movie?
Peter Jackson classic. Before he was making Lord of the Rings, he was making some very cool horror movies.
One of his first, correct? Right at the
Yeah,
beginning
yeah.
of his career.
Yeah.
Evil Dead. Very happy to see this one in the auction.
I love Evil
A
Dead.
classic. I like the sequel a little better, although
I do too.
they're very similar. Very
They are.
similar. Almost a retelling.
It is, but with a Three Stooges twist to it.
Yes, exactly. Bruce Campbell, fantastic
I love Bruce
in
Campbell.
the entire series. Army of Darkness, also great.
Spectacular.
Evil Dead 2, there it is. This is
So hard to find copies of the early Vestron release of Evil Dead 2.
yeah, because how many of these could have even been manufactured? It
Yeah.
was not a big hit.
It wasn't a big hit, and at that point, Evil Dead, it had its fans, but
Sure.
most of the time these were going to video stores that were probably going to pop them open and rent them out. So even to find a sealed copy of it is miraculous, regardless of the grade.
And there's nice action here. We're at 1,100. And there information out there about how many the studios produced?
I haven't seen anything with numbers like that out there. It would be really handy, but again, you don't know even how many of the sealed copies survived out of those initial numbers.
It's the same in my venue in sports. The card manufacturers do not release the issues, so it's really just a shot in the dark. All right, Exorcist 2 here. If any movie needed a sequel, was it Exorcist?
It has its fans, I guess, but it is considered to be one of the worst sequels of all time.
Yes, I have seen it, and especially it always hurts when the first one is just such an incredible film,
It's iconic.
and then you're not going to be able to keep up.
No.
Okay, The Fog.
And this is a Video 8. This is a different format than most people are familiar with. There were
I was going to
VHS
ask,
and
what does
Beta.
that mean exactly?
Video 8 was just a separate format from VHS and Beta, much smaller tape, and it didn't really catch on. But there were a lot of titles that were released, on Video 8. So you can still find some. They're tough though. Tough to find.
Yeah, I'd never heard it before.
Yeah.
So that one's closing right now. All right, Frankenhooker. This title has to be a first for Heritage Auctions. I'm going to say we have a few entertainment divisions. I have not seen this one, but you get it all from the cover, what it's about. You don't even have to read the synopsis there.
When these first came out, the very early ones had a voice box in them. So if you squeeze the tape, it would say "Want a date?" And,
Oh, really?
yeah. It
Does
was-
this one have that? Have you ever seen one of those now?
I don't think that the battery would have survived to this point.
Surely
I had a copy of King Kong a while back that if you squeezed it, it would make Kong's roar. But by the time I got it, and it had been out for so long that it was barely audible. It was just a clicking noise.
Nice
So,
feature there. A lot of good action on Frankenhooker here. I'm just going to try and say that as many times as I can to make exactly
I'm avoiding saying
squirm
it,
in
so
their
I'm glad you're
office.
saying it.
1800 here. Cult classic indeed. Still at 1800. If you want to get in, you got to jump in right now. But perusing the list of the movies, there was some, of course, that I was incredibly familiar with, but some like that I'd never even heard of.
Yep.
So
Frankenstein.
yeah, Frankenstein I've heard of.
Frankenstein, I
Yes.
hope you've heard of.
So 1980. This is the Frank Whale adaptation, correct? Yes.
Correct. Yeah, the Boris
Okay.
Karloff classic. Super early MCA release. These MCA Rainbow, we call it MCA Rainbow, where it says video cassette incorporated over the top of the MCA logo. So difficult to find. They were among the earliest companies that were producing tapes, and any of those, especially big titles like original Frankenstein, just so hard to find.
Yeah, so a re-release of a classic.
Yeah.
You can see why people would open those up. Probably older people are
Sure.
getting them, and they're not thinking, I should save this
Oh,
or
God, no.
give it out as a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just going to open it up and watch it.
Yeah, this is the only copy of this I've ever seen still sealed on beta. So this copy of Frankenstein is a rare one.
Wow, an 8.5 mint I
Yeah.
see there. Pretty incredible. It's been a while since I saw that movie, but definitely the role Boris Karloff was born to play
Yeah.
with his visage. All right, here we go. Friday the 13th, another great cover there,
Yep.
and kicked off a
Iconic.
mammoth franchise. Still going? Question mark.
I get they're
It's
still
been a
trying.
while.
I know that the rights have been tied up with issues. Otherwise, they probably would have been making more of them. They had a video game come out not too long ago. That
Oh, that's
people
right.
Really liked.
That's right.
But yeah, the titles, I mean, they sent him to space, so
Right.
he's gone everywhere so far.
Maybe they just haven't. found the right idea yet. Maybe Send Him Back in Time.
There we go.
That's a good one. Underwater is also an option.
He was chained up underwater to begin with.
Right. So that would be a nice little full circle
Yeah.
right there for Jason.
Yeah.
So what makes this copy special?
This is just the slipcase edition. That's the first slipcase that had come out for Friday the 13th. Previous to that, they had what was called a gatefold cover, where the front of the cover opened up and the tape slid out from the side once the cover was opened. And so that was one of the early slipcase versions. A later release of that slipcase version based off the side watermarks, but still a sought after copy.
Yeah, and then we've got the final chapter here. Was this the final chapter?
Certainly not.
Yeah,
certainly not. But they had intended it to be. They were going to be done with Friday the 13th, and the fan demand just brought him back. But the producer was ready to end it, and this was intended to be the end. Tom Savini came back to kill off Jason Voorhees, the special effects guru, and then it just kept going after that.
My favorite moment in the series is from Jason Takes Manhattan.
Oh my God!
When the boxer challenges him on the rooftop, and Jason punches his head clean off.
Yeah, well,
that moment's really stayed with me.
yeah. That's fair.
All right, Fright Night. I do remember this one. Vampire movie, correct?
Yeah, vampire
Yes.
movie.
Okay.
Vampire movie. Great sort of comic blend. We had a former vampire hunter in the movies helping a teenager or young
Like
guy,
a Van Helsing figure,
Sort of, yeah.
grizzled veteran
exactly
of the
jumping
vampire
in
game.
to help with a vampire in the area. So it's
Made enough money for a sequel, I see. Fright Night
they were
2.
successful in the first one. They killed the vampire, and his sister came back for the second one for revenge.
Okay, good angle on it.
Yeah.
Good angle. That's kind
She
of
was
the
also a
same with
vampire, too.
Howling and Howling 2.
Yeah.
It's the sister
Yeah.
in there. All right, Ghostbusters. So massive hit. One of the biggest and most popular movies of all time. How many copies of this unopened are out there? I can't
mean,
even imagine.
This is an original, so it's got the 3D embossed ghost on the front cover.
Oh wow.
It's got the rear RCA Columbia watermarks, which is what you want if you're collecting a Ghostbusters tape, and it's got the TDK tape logo in the bottom right corner. So this has it all. We had a nice copy of this in the first auction that did gangbusters, and this one is an 85 instead of an 85 plus, and it's a beautiful copy though, and they're so hard to find, those original first releases. 6,500
right now, and there it goes. And they rebooted the franchise recently again. Thoughts on the reboot?
It was good. It was good. It was nice to see everybody back.
Yes, definitely pulling everyone back in helped.
Yeah. I think the nostalgia of seeing the team, even
The car, all of it.
Everybody together. The car coming out from under the tarp. It was nice to see.
All right, and then what makes this next copy significant?
So also this is a beta copy of the original Ghostbusters. Same thing, 3D ghosts, rear watermarks, everything you'd want, but it's just a beta copy of it.
Okay, some nice action on it. We're 2,400 right now.
It's a steal.
Yeah,
Hard to
get
find.
in there.
Yeah, hard to find.
So love the idea that you guys had for Halloween, doing all the horror, lining it up. Was it something where you just had a demographic of horror movies and you said we could put together a whole auction
It's
of this?
been the most passionate, collectors of VHS tapes have always been horror collectors, and there's so many iconic horror titles, and we were able to just put together 100 lots of just really great tapes, that people would be excited to see, and it was nice to get them all in one place. It's so hard. Some of these are just so rare,
Right.
and to be able to put that together for Halloween and end it on Halloween is just it's a very cool thing.
Yeah, good timing. Hopefully Exec isn't watching, but on Halloween day, nobody really wants to work too hard.
Everybody wants to get in their costumes.
Nice diversion.
Yeah.
Okay, Ghoulies. This reminded me of Chud a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't remember it as well. I definitely saw it when I was a kid.
It was one of those ones that stayed with me as a kid. I definitely the little creatures just always creep me out. So
coming out of the toilet too. Usually a tough sell for a movie if you've got a toilet on the movie poster, I think.
I mean,
no way to go around it here. No. So, okay, another classic here, Gremlins. What makes this copy significant?
This is the only original first release Ghostbusters I've ever seen. It's got wraparound Warner Brothers watermarks. It has a two-tone tape, which is usually indicative of the very first releases that went out, where the tape guard was a different color. It has the silver security sticker that Warner Brothers was using at the time, and it has no UPC on the side, which very few of those came out with no UPC, because shortly after they started putting the UPC, I would say within a year, they were putting the UPC on the side of the boxes. So this one is as early as you can get, as rare as you can get, and it's the only one of this I've ever seen on VHS.
Okay, I'd always wondered about that. Why the alternate color on the tape guard there?
Yeah, I think that there's no, I don't know anybody that has the proper answer for it, but I think it was usually a security
We'll make
feature
something
for,
up then.
I think the theory is that it was a security feature for video stores. They were worried about people trying to return, a different tape or whatever.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sort of set it apart from regular tapes that you could buy and record on your own.
So as far as collectors, that's an added benefit. If
It
you
is,
see
yeah.
one of
Usually
those.
that's a big selling point for a collector, especially if it's a first release, early tape. They tended to be a little bit heavier because they would sell it to the video stores earlier at a higher price, and then they would eventually drop the price for the retail market so that others could buy it. So it was made of a little bit higher quality. They wanted those video stores to be able to rent it 100 times and not have the tape breakdown.
Make sure it lasts.
Exactly.
So why do you think Gremlins hasn't rebooted? That's become so popular and just recycling the ideas. And that is a beloved franchise that just...
It really is. Their HBO Max is coming out with a Gremlins cartoon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that has the original director, Joe Dante's involved. And so they're going to be doing something with it, at least. But I'm surprised that it hasn't come up before.
Joe Dante with a couple entries in the auction. Howling
as
one.
well.
All right, here we go. Halloween. This is that beta box you were talking about at the beginning. What do you love about this one?
I mean, this one is just, it's one of the early, Halloween was released on home video the same year it came out, which was unheard of in 1978. This is, initially it had come out, the company's name was MEDA, M-E-D-A. But then there were, once Charles Band, the owner of the company, was sort of ousted by his other partners, they changed the name to Media because everybody thought it was just a misspelling on the box.
Right, makes sense.
So this is a 79 copy. I've only heard of 2 others out there that were sealed, and so this is just an unbelievable ride. to be able to have the opportunity to buy something like this is just crazy.
Yeah, and a landmark entry in the horror genre for sure. Great cover, very cleverly done, and the music from it is iconic. So a lot of action here. No surprise, it's $18,000.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. This is a huge title. This is one that I've never even heard of changing hands privately. So it's a big one.
Right. So if you wanted it, that was the time to get it.
That was the time to get it.
All right. And of course, we got Halloween 2 coming up right after. What did you think of the follow-up, the movie?
It was a great one as a kid. I loved watching the continuation of The Same Night.
Yes.
It was obviously, it had more of a synth score rather than the original iconic John Carpenter. And it was definitely more violent, trying to keep up with the trends at the time of all the other slasher movies that had started coming out. Or
you got to amp it up, amp up the violence and the gore.
Exactly. And so they wanted to up everything a bit. Outside of the fact that they made Michael Laurie's brother, which John Carpenter regretted.
But that is canon.
That is canon. If we're considering the new trilogy, it's not. It's,
that's the fun of it, is trying to keep up it, just to annoy the people out there on the internet who want to keep the canon pure.
And this
great cover here.
Super rare. Again, another MCA Rainbow. This is the only sealed copy I've ever seen out there for Halloween 2. These early MCA Rainbow copies, and we're fortunate enough to have a couple of them in this auction, are just next level hard to find and so in demand.
Good action here. This one creeping into 5 figures as well. At 11,000 right now. Now 12,000. Fantastic. You've got a few Halloween entries in here.
Yeah.
I was kind of using what lots you had in to gauge what's the most popular in this genre. It's a genre and a collectibles industry a lot of people are just learning about or just really getting into. What would you say was the most important thing for a newbie who's just jumping in
to collecting VHS?
Mm-hmm.
I think I think you should collect what you love. I think that's the key, and I think that that's what makes VHS fun, is everybody has a favorite movie. So
Sure.
find the ones that you loved and buy those, and even if it's not the very first release, like a lot of these are just really early copies, and a lot of people can't afford it. I'm priced out of a lot of the ones that I would want at this point, but if you're able to just get any copy, even if it's sealed, to have a nice graded copy of a movie that you love, it's really cool to be able to do.
They make for great display pieces.
They do. Yeah, it's like a mini movie poster that you can put on your shelf, except you don't have to, have 27 by 41 inches on your wall.
Framing's very expensive.
Very.
I've discovered.
Yeah.
Another great franchise here. This is Hellraiser. What do you like about this copy from the original?
It's almost as early as it comes here. We've got the very early Pinhead Hellraiser copy here, New Horizons watermark on it. So hard to find. This is another one. Like I keep saying this, but like there's so many tapes in this auction that I've never seen before, or there's only a couple copies out there, and I think that's one thing that gets overlooked a lot, is just how few of these there are.
Since you started working at Heritage, have you been surprised? You have this conduit now where people can reach out to you with questions, with inquiries, and you're not just kind of out there on your own. Have you been surprised about how many people are in this industry?
Yeah, and there's more and more of them that seem to be coming in. I mean, the enthusiasm is great. Anytime I talk to people and let them know what it is I do here, I'll have somebody talk to me for the next half hour because they're just so curious about it, and it's everybody sort of gravitates. They know VHS, and they know its importance, and it literally changed the world. Being able to take movies home, or to be able to rent movies whenever you wanted to see something. Like, I know now we're spoiled with streaming, and we can put on Netflix or any of these other streaming services and watch a myriad of movies at any point in time. But there was something cool about your local video store only had a certain selection, and maybe you went slept over a friend's house that was somewhere else, and they had a different video store, and being able to go to the video store and see what they had,
it was like a new world.
It really was. And so like this was such a new thing. Like otherwise you would be waiting for something to show on TV, or something to come around again in theatrical release. And so it was so hard to be able to be a movie fan. I think at that point this just sort of opened the floodgates for everybody.
Yeah, I was explaining to my 8-year-old son what VHS was this weekend, because he was complaining about on Netflix how long it took to rewind things. And I was like, you have no idea the spotty technology that it was to try and find like a specific scene or go back to where you were in a movie when it was on VHS. Very interesting. Yeah, I bet you get a lot of active conversation at cocktail parties about your occupation.
Oh yeah, people can't believe it. I mean, that's the other thing, is like more and more people are starting to learn that there's value in this stuff, but so many people are just so befuddled when I tell them that there's a market, that people are collecting these things now and
grading them.
Yeah.
So one of my clients, we were talking about the auction, and he wanted me to ask you, do you think Laserdisc and then DVD, is it something where this is the beginning, and as you go down the road the other media will join it?
I think it is. And I think that there's always going to be a lover of physical media, regardless of what it is. I still buy ultra high def movies sometimes. There's certain ones that I will buy just to stream, but there's other ones that I want to own a physical copy of, and I think that there's enough of those people out there that we're going to see people sort of coming of age that grew up with DVD instead of VHS. And I've already seen people that have been buying DVDs up and putting them aside because they think that that could be the next thing, and that they remember more vividly the DVD era than the VHS era. And I think Laserdisc, even though it's sort of a weird offshoot that was around at the same time VHS kicked off, that you're going to see people that are building Laserdisc collections. I see it a lot. There's a lot of people out there that have Laserdiscs, and I still have Laserdiscs. I have a Laserdisc player at home that I'll put stuff on and watch. So
I have at my desk, probably 10 years ago, one of Heritage's owners, Jim Halprin, sent a company-wide email saying that he'd put some of his old videos and tapes out in the break room and anyone could have them, and he'd left a Laserdisc of Dune in there, which I snagged. So I have that on my desk, just waiting for the day when that market starts to pick up.
IGS, the company that has graded a lot of these tapes in our auction, they're getting ready to start grading Laserdiscs soon. So
all right.
You might see it sooner than you think.
I'm going to be submitting that. I guarantee it.
And I guarantee somebody will want it too. Dune's a classic.
Oh, speaking of classics, Howling 2 here. If you're a fan of this movie, I'll mention that How Did This Get Made podcast just covered it. It's spectacular.
Two really goes off the rails compared to the first one.
Yeah, a lot of werewolf nudity in there. There's a werewolf sex scene also, which I do not recommend. If that piques your interest, it's not going to be what you think. But yeah, but you know, all the hallmarks of a classic, bad, enjoyable movie. Campy acting, them being in a LA soundstage and saying that they're in Transylvania, things like that. Mishits with the script, maybe too many cooks in the kitchen on the script there, but it did pique my interest about the Howling series, which I had seen Howling 1, and that is a good movie.
It is a great movie, and written by John Sayles, directed by Joe Dante. You know, both very well regarded filmmakers who went on to have very great careers.
More of a vampire guy, I'd say, when it came to vampires or werewolves, but
me too.
I do like Howling 1 and American Werewolf.
American Werewolf is just a classic.
Far superior to American Werewolf in Paris. Have you seen that one?
I have. You know, and that one is unfortunately directed by a gentleman who did a pretty amazing first film called Mute Witness, and he followed it up with that one. And again, I don't know if it was just a studio involvement that kind of derailed the
too many notes.
Too many notes, and we were on the verge of CGI, so there was a lot of weird. It didn't have the same effect as the first, and I think they were just trying to replicate that.
Oh, great one here, It.
Yes.
So how many like made for TV movies like that ended up going on to VHS? Did that always happen?
It
if it
didn't
was
always
popular
happen.
enough?
You know, there's a lot of people that are out looking for even recorded versions of TV movies that just never made that jump. But a lot of those Stephen King things.
Certainly the kids ones always did. You know, Rudolph, and Charlie Brown. But I wondered about that. Those made for TV movies, did they ever actually make it into the VHS?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorites is Spielberg's Duel. That was a pre-Jaws guy on a highway being taunted by a massive oil truck. Guys trying to kill him, and that one ended up on VHS, I assume, because of Spielberg's later works. But you'd see sometimes some TV movies pop up on VHS. A lot of times they would try to market it as a movie maybe that you hadn't seen, but they didn't really lean into the TV part of it.
Right, they didn't want you to know how it came to be. All right, Jaws 2 here.
Yeah, another MCA Rainbow. This is a Canadian version of Jaws 2, but a super rare, super hard to find copy. These early MCA Rainbows just really difficult to find sealed.
Love the cover on it too. The same pose for the shark as part 1. Instead of it's underwater, it's with the skier in front of it. Are we gonna have Jaws 3 next? Is that coming up?
There's no Jaws 3 in this one now, but Jaws 2,
the 3D edition.
Jaws 2, at least holds up because you see some of the characters from the first film returning for the second, including our beloved mayor.
Yeah, vote in your local elections. I would say about that, as he's still mayor,
still going
after the debacle of Jaws 1. All right, Little Monsters. I was surprised to see this one in here. I do remember this from my youth. Fred Savage, a huge star. Do you consider this a horror movie?
I think for kids, I think it's a great kids horror title. I mean, monsters. It's, but like that copy is so hard to find. Like I've only seen maybe a couple of those, and that was a later 1990 release. And there's some late 80s, early 90s tapes that are just sneaky hard to find, and that's definitely one of them. Okay.
Lost Boys. Classic here. What's interesting about this example?
I mean, Lost Boys is always a classic. So one of the coolest vampire movies of the 80s.
For sure.
And just to find copies that are in this nice a shape. Great shrink wrap on it still. Great watermarks. Just really has everything going for it.
That's one of those movies that it holds a special place in everyone's hearts. Monster Squad, same.
Huge one for me.
Yeah.
I loved Monster Squad growing up. I thought I was one of the only people who had ever seen the movie until, 2000, the early 2000s. You get on the internet and then you realize there was this whole fan base of people that loved Monster Squad. And this one is a really, really rare copy, early Vestron copy with Vestron watermarks on it. Just a really nice one and it's so hard to find. Monster Squad is that's a tough one.
Yeah, and it taught you if you got attacked by the Wolfman where you should kick him.
Exactly.
My Bloody Valentine here. Not familiar. Can you give us the rundown on this
So
example?
this one especially, though, it's one of those early 80s slasher movies that came in the wake of Halloween's popularity. This one's a gatefold Paramount copy, which are just so hard to find. It's like, that's the early days of Paramount. You know, when Paramount started producing tapes, they were doing these gatefold releases, and this is a beta copy, and just so tough to find early Paramount gatefolds, and that's a big title for people. You know, horror fans love it.
So the gatefold, of course, makes it more valuable.
More valuable, yeah. Earlier, it's earlier, so the earlier the better.
Okay. Near Dark up right now, bidding just beginning on that. So when do you have your next auction planned?
So we've got another one planned for December 15th, and we've already got a pretty killer lineup of tapes. So there's some stuff that I think people have never seen before that they're going to be really excited about.
And you're still taking in consignments for auction?
Yeah, depending. I mean, at this point, the grading period, the grading times are kind of long. So if you have graded material, we're absolutely looking for that stuff still. You know, if it's the right stuff.
A lot of collecting disciplines dealing with grading delays, but
Yes.
it's a good thing. I tell people that more people are coming into the industry. When a lot more people are submitting, it just means more people in the tent, which is good for all collectors,
Exactly.
really.
Yeah.
And especially a genre like VHS that's just starting to grow.
Still in its infancy.
You got to have more people in it to really get to that breakthrough, to that popularity level.
Yep.
Night of the Creeps. All right, what's special about this example here?
Night of the Creeps is it's one of those ones that, with the previous title, Night of the Comet, just unrelated movies, but just classics in their own right from the 80s. This one just sort of like a zombified, you know, one of those zombie sort of centric genre movies that was just a really fun movie, and had its humor and had its gore, and you know, just a title that we all loved that saw it back in the 80s.
Is this one that I should watch? Are
You
you
should
making
definitely
a
watch it.
recommendation?
Yeah, I think
I do like zombie movies.
Creeps,
So
I love both of them. This one, if you've seen the movie Slither, that James
I
Gunn
have.
did not too long ago, sort of in the same vein.
Okay, I'm interested. You
Yeah.
sold me there. Some nice action there. It's at 900 right now, and 950. Another bid there. So let's see what we got coming up here next. Okay, good. Yeah. Poltergeist coming up here in a minute as well. This one's still going. You're talking up Night of the Creeps here, and the bidders are liking it. So maybe I'll make the wife watch that this evening
It's a good
for
one.
Halloween.
It's a fun one.
All right, Night of the Living Dead, a landmark entry here. What did this movie mean to you?
Oh my God! It created the modern zombie. I mean, it's crazy to think about the impact of zombies. You know, Walking Dead now and everything else. But like, at the point that George Romero made Night of the Living Dead, there had been the term zombie thrown out, but not as the creatures that
It was more like a voodoo thing, and there had been a few movies that kind of tiptoed around that, but nothing like this.
But this was just a huge one, and you know, the social commentary of the time, which George Romero was always known for with all of his movies, and the fact that it was such a great low budget, just straight up horror movie, and creating a genre. Like, you think about it these days, like how easy is it to create a genre of horror movie?
Right.
And he did it so well with Night of the Living Dead, and then followed it up with Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, all great movies.
Yeah, a great franchise, one where kind of each movie built on what the previous one had done, instead of just trying to mine or exploit it for a quick buck.
Exactly, and these again, like the full box media copies like this, are just so hard to find. This is an '82 release. Just really tough to find early Night of the Living Deads, because the thing with Night of the Living Dead is it was a public domain movie, so any company could produce copies of it, and, and they did. And so you'll see, if you wanted to start a Night of the Living Dead collection, you could do it you'd end up with 50 to 100 tapes, because every manufacturer could make their own copies of it. That's
an interesting way to collect it there. I didn't realize how often does that happen?
Not often. It was
public domain.
It was due to the fact that when they retitled the movie, he left off the copyright information, and basically it
just a
enabled anybody to make
clerical error.
Clerical error, and he ended up losing millions from it because they didn't have a copyright on it.
But I wonder if that helped increase the popularity.
Perhaps,
of it.
I mean, it definitely
got it in front of more people.
Yeah.
Because that's one I definitely didn't see it when it came out. It was later when I was in high school, and movie buff people, but glad to see that one in there. That's definitely a landmark for the horror genre.
It's one of the biggest titles, leading into what we know as the modern horror era. So.
And zombies have become such a mainstay in
They
it.
have.
And like you said, people trying to find a new angle. There's been a lot of people in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Horror's had a great resurgence.
Yeah.
And people doing a lot of unique and interesting things instead of just recycling, okay, the Wolfman or the vampire or whatever. Although I do like vampire movies.
The vampire movies, it all depends. Depends how you do them.
All right. Piranha 2. Have you seen this one?
I've seen Piranha 2. I saw it a long time ago. Piranha 2 is a good one. Just James Cameron's first film. So
okay.
The first Piranha was a minor hit for Roger Corman, and then you have James Cameron coming in and saying like, we're going to make the Piranha fly now. So they're out of the water and they're flying.
Hard to argue with Cameron on movies. So they're building the new Avatar James Cameron world. Is there going to be a Piranha 2 section of that, do you think?
I have a feeling that we're probably not going to see that.
No, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right, Poltergeist here. Great movie. The great Craig T. Nelson just crushing it in every scene.
My favorite Spielberg directed film of the early 80s.
Wow, that's a bold praise there.
Well, I mean, there's always the back and forth about if Tobe Hooper directed it or Steven Spielberg, but I'm of the camp where I think Spielberg. There's so much Spielberg in there, and there is Tobe Hooper as well. So it's a great mix between the two. No matter where you come out on it, it's just such a great. It has his Amblin feel to it, his small town
For sure.
feel to it, and
Definitely.
then, the great horror elements to it too.
And it's always heightens the tension when it's a child that's involved and the child's missing.
Yep.
I believe that really popularized the Indian burial ground trope that became very common, but I think they might have been the first one, or the first major one that I could remember.
Yeah. That's the first one I can remember.
All right, so things are going swimmingly. We're going to take a quick break, and the auction's going to continue, so stay up with it, keep bidding. Some more great titles coming up, and when we come back, we'll talk about the last few, the close of the auction, and what we have coming up next. Welcome back. Well, that was incredible. But now we've got something even more important. I want to take a little moment to talk about one of my favorite movies, The Shining.
Wait a second. I wanted to talk about The Shining.
No, I mean, you get the expert. You got to talk about everything else. It's my time to shine. This is one I know.
But we're talking about VHS tapes.
Yeah, and I know very little. We've established that, obviously. But this is one of my favorites. I'm a huge Stephen King fan.
Yeah, but Stephen King hated the movie.
He hates all the movies. But I read the book. You probably haven't even read the book.
I've seen the book.
Know it was a book?
I've seen the book.
Yeah, well, this is one of my favorites. Sit there, put your expertise on hold, and I'm going to take this shine for a moment. So, a 1982 horror classic, directed by Stanley Kubrick. It's one of my favorites. you doing? What are you doing? Jay, let me out of here and we'll forget the whole damn thing. It'll be like nothing ever happened. Jay, baby, you hurt my head real bad. I'm dizzy. I need a doctor. Don't leave me here.
I'm gonna go now. I have to do the live show. I'll call a doctor.
Jay. Jay. You've got a big surprise coming to you. You're not going anywhere. Go check out the live show and see what I mean. Go check it out. Go check it out.
And we're back. My co-host is absent. I don't know where he went. But yeah, so I guess maybe should we let him in? Somebody let him in.
Oh, apologies. Lloyd let me back in.
Oh, nice.
Did I miss anything?
Oh, I mean, we're just, still going on with the auction here. Do you want to talk about Shining?
I do, but maybe I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to talk about it if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think it's just a classic film. It's one of the biggest horror titles of the 80s.
Well, and why did Stephen King hate it?
I mean, he thought it was too cold. He thought the film was too cold, and that the character of Jack was unrelatable. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. Agree to disagree, I guess.
I guess so.
Put it all behind us.
We can go on with it, I guess.
All right. So interested to see this one in the auction, Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf's a classic.
Yeah.
80s
So
classic.
definitely not a horror, but a Halloween movie for sure.
Werewolf title. So.
The great Michael J. Fox. Did you ever want to surf on top of the van?
I wanted to ride on Styles' van.
Yeah.
And dance around as he drove through town.
Absolutely. So is this a popular title for VHS Collects?
Super hard to find. So this copy came out along with another one that we have here. Both releases from 1986. This was the first. So few of them are out there, sealed still. And even finding open copies of this it's really difficult, just based off the fact that there were the collector's series one, which is black and gold sort of coloring that we see here in the next one. This collector's series copy came out the same year as the first VHS release, when Paramount started doing their anniversary titles with this, black and gold sort of color scheme on the box. So both copies extremely difficult to find. The black and gold one might even be as rare, if not rarer than the first one too. So
any interest in Teen Wolf 2? With Jason Bateman.
I love Teen Wolf 2. We actually have a copy of Teen Wolf 2 in the December auction coming up.
Nice. So. Very nice. Yeah. His stars started to shine, Bateman, so I wondered if that would illuminate anyone on that underappreciated sequel, I will say.
It is.
The werewolf boxing.
Yeah.
It was a great twist there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a beta copy of the first release. So hard to find. Rear Paramount watermarks on it, just like the VHS copy that we had. Just it's just a great 80s title. Like along with Monster Squad, this was one of my favorites.
Yes, I wore my VHS copy of this out.
Yeah.
I will say that.
It's a great one. Not entirely appropriate like most 80s movies to put on for kids today. But
Yeah, did have the 7 Minutes in Heaven
Yeah.
scene there.
Yeah.
Kept it pretty clean though.
Yeah.
Some nice action on that one. All right, here we go. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What does this movie mean to you?
This is a huge one. I think everybody looks at Halloween as sort of kickstarting the horror genre in the late 70s, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre is about as perfect a movie as you can get. Scary, and what's great about this is that as gory as most people feel like it is, they initially tried to get a PG rating on it because
Wow.
there was so little. Most of it's implied. It's just a terrifying movie, and so it's I can't say enough about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just a great title.
It's got that real grimy feel
It does.
to
It's
it.
documentary feel. It feels like you're sort of there. And I think that I saw it, when I was probably 12, and it really scared me. And it's as opposed to Texas Chainsaw 2, which is just sort of off the rails, crazy.
Right.
But a fun one, a fun 80s film. Toby Hooper following up his original film, but a very different film than that first.
Yes, but still some love for it. I see with some
Yeah.
bids coming in for the sequel. What did you think about McConaughey's remake,
Oh boy,
reboot?
yeah, that part 4 with Renee Zellweger as well in that film.
So
The
a lot
new
of star
generation.
power. A lot of star
The
power.
new generation. Didn't love it.
Yeah,
This one though. Poof.
the Thing.
The
Yeah,
Thing. This is one of the biggest ones in the auction. The only copy I've ever seen of an MCA Rainbow copy of The Thing, wraparound MCA Rainbow watermarks, and the two-tone tape. This one is just next level hard to find. I've only seen the one copy. I've only even heard of the one copy out there in anybody's hands. So this could be the only opportunity anybody ever gets to take this one
exploding out of the box. 18,000
Yeah,
now.
yeah. It's a huge title.
Great movie and very ominous cover to it there
Classic,
as well.
actually. Drew Struzan artwork. He didn't know what to do for the poster, and he came up with it over the course of like a day. The paint was still wet when they brought it and photographed it.
Wow. Kind of feels like that with the title as well, that
Yeah.
they couldn't hit on something. And, The Thing is so generic. But
It's also a remake of a classic Howard Hawks produced film called The Thing from Another Planet, I think, or The Thing from Outer
Okay.
Space. Referenced in Carpenter's first movie of Halloween. The kids are watching The Thing.
Oh, really?
On TV, yeah.
that's a nice tie-in. This one at 28,000 now.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. This is just one of the marquee titles of the entire auction.
So one of the hardest VHS tapes to come by, then, would you say?
Easily one of the hardest tapes to find, and such a big title. So many fans of The Thing. I love Halloween, but The Thing might be Carpenter's masterpiece.
Yeah. Wow, a lot of activity up at 30,000
Yeah,
now.
yeah. This one, I'm not surprised.
That's some serious money in the genre for sure. All right,
Yeah.
closing 30,000.
Wow.
Tourist Trap up next. What do you got on Tourist Trap?
Tourist Trap is one of those ones that I only saw parts of growing up, and I don't know why that was, but it's a weird movie, but it has a real dedicated fan base. Just a strange early '80s sort of supernatural movie. Somebody with powers making mannequins move around and do their bidding.
So we've seen a lot of those cult favorites
Yeah.
or the smaller releases that
Yeah.
became huge.
Yeah.
A lot of them populating this auction and getting some nice results as well.
Yeah, Town That Dreaded Sundown here too. This is a spectacular one. On my way to moving to Dallas, I drove through Texarkana, where this movie is based on a true story that happened in Texarkana in the 40s
Oh, really?
of somebody who was killing kids out on Lover's Lane
Huh.
back in the 1940s.
Okay. Love this one. The Toxic
Also based on a
Avenger.
true story, Toxic Avenger.
Toxic Avenger. Nice. Very nice. No need to look that one up, though.
No, don't check that. Don't fact check.
But that one definitely had to be a very small release, super low budget movie.
Yeah, Trauma. The beginning of Trauma.
Yeah. Their opening salvo, even.
Yeah.
All right. Trick or Treat.
Trick or Treat is one that has a small but dedicated fan base, and this one is just really tough to find. Even open copies are sought after by collectors, and
Oh,
so
really?
yeah, this one has a couple musicians in it. I think it's just got that sort of cameo power of people that loved the strange story and the seeing Gene Simmons pop up in an early movie.
Yeah, he always makes for entertaining activity when he hops in. The Video Dead. I've never even heard of this one
Video
before.
Dead is one of those ones that huge horror cult following, impossible to find sealed copies of. It's so, again, another one that open copies tend to sell for quite a bit when it comes to the Video Dead. So finding one in any condition is sealed is nearly impossible. And this one is just the only one I've ever seen or even ever heard of. So.
And the bitters echoing that there up at 1,800.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Like this one, I had a feeling there were going to be some people that would be interested in it. So that's why it was fun to sort of mix this auction with some of these more cult favorites and then some of the bigger ones that everybody recognizes. But
yeah, good to give those cult favorites a chance to shine here.
For sure.
That's still going. 2,400.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this auction definitely giving me an opportunity to start a new list of these movies that I've never seen before.
Yeah, it's fun because I was doing the same thing as I was going through and putting it together. There were so many of these titles that I either hadn't seen or just haven't seen in so long that I was like, boy, I haven't seen that in forever. I want to check that out again.
And then you can watch movies on the clock. Is that allowable? I'm assuming your office is just a viewing parlor.
Oh yeah. We just have the old CRT TV on the side there and just cranking away on tapes.
A lot of action on Video Dead here still going at 3,800.
Wow.
Yeah, and as you said, those little niche ones. All right, Young Frankenstein, a classic.
Classic,
here.
And this is an early copy, magnetic video. So rare, like, again, a classic movie, early release, early 80s. There can't be very many copies of magnetic Young Frankenstein still out there. So this one is a real treat to be able to have in the lineup.
It holds up, and I haven't thought about watching it for Halloween, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing grade on it.
Good activity here. We're at 4,400. Yeah, Gene Wilder, one of his best performances in it. Igor, very funny. There's a lot of great aspects to it, for sure. And a movie that holds up.
It sure does.
4,600 right now.
People love Mel Brooks.
Yeah, of course. A huge attraction, whatever he does, whatever he touches, especially in the last, in that era right then in the early 80s. And then he just rebooted into musicals right now for the older crowd when they're ready to act a little bit more civilized. All right, Black Devil Doll from Hell. That title really lets you know what you're getting into right there. It's not The Thing where there's a little ambiguity. This one,
this is one of
you
the
know
only
the plot right away.
Ungraded, previously viewed open box, but so hard to find. This is among the first releases of Black Devil Doll, and just so rare. And again, speak of rare, another open box, Wizard Video, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Such an iconic poster being used for the cover here. And Wizard Video was the company that Charles Band had started after he was ousted from media. And so he started with Wizard Video.
The name that everyone thought was a typo.
Exactly, and then he put this out. There was a Texas Chainsaw video game that was part of Wizard that they had released back in the day for the Atari. So this, it's a pretty iconic piece, and that logo is one that just is great. It just shouts early 80s VHS.
Yeah, and 1,000 used and ungraded there. That's impressive. All right, and this is the last one right here. Fitting to end it all with Halloween here. What do you like about this example?
I love the 1979 beta copy that we had is it's awesome based off of its significance. But the 1981 Halloween is the one that I associate with the video store from when I was a kid. I remember this cover. I remember picking this up, and looking at the back and trying to decide if I wanted to rent this or not. Like, this is the one, full box media, super rare gold watermarks on the back, far apart. The later media titles had silver watermarks. And so then this is just such an amazing copy to have. I've only heard of maybe 2 of these out there with the gold watermarks.
And the bidder's backing that up with 11,000 there. So that concludes the auction. What a great event.
Yes.
Happy Halloween to everyone out there. And congrats to all the winning bidders and the consigners, of course. Couldn't do it without both sides there.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy for everybody, and being able to put on a show of just horror movies.
And as Jay said, they have a sale coming up in December.
December
If you have material that's already graded, still a chance to get it in.
Yep.
So Jay, give them your contact.
Yeah,
info.
so you can reach me at jayc@ha.com. So jc@ha.com.
And there it is. And of course, free appraisals at any time
welcome.
on anything. Everybody have a safe and happy Halloween, and we'll see you next time.